when Diane was asking us to talk a little bit about the transformational effects that mobile technology and other technologies can have on both our society as well as our corporate lives and ultimately the lives that we're living. So basically when we look at mobile and social, those are really just two incarnations of technological innovation that we've experienced for the past 5 years. If we look at the larger picture, it's been 3 decades now of technological transformation that both in magnitude as well as in reach resembles pretty much what we've experienced throughout the Industrial Revolution about 140 years ago. So what we experience today is that every aspect of our life changes. If you look at a bus stop and you see what people are doing, no one's waiting and talking anymore. They're looking at mobile phones. If you're looking at our workplaces, people come in with consumer electronics with their mobile phones, and there's an expectation that their email and their work environment works on those phones. And that translates fundamentally into everything that goes around airports as well. So if we look at traditionally what airports have been doing or how airports are set up, they're primarily B2B businesses. Their customers of airports are airlines, they're retailers, government agencies who occupy offices and so on and so forth. In the case of Brisbane Airport, it's around 80+% that's business to business, and the other somewhat just below 20% is direct business that comes from consumers, primarily out of parking. Now, BAC sort of has the choice to continue to do what it's good at, and this is looking after that B2B business, watching or checking, trying to make more airlines coming into Brisbane and trying to extend that. But the big elephant in the room is really to try to understand what those 25 million people that go through the airport every year are actually doing there, and why they're there in the first place. 25 million is an astonishing number, and Diane, when you're asking for crazy ideas, a small idea has a massive effect if you're doing it for 25 million people. So if you look at trying to understand what they're doing, and if you're looking at what airports have been doing specifically over the past few years, first incarnations are a website, so they're introducing a website. Now, a website is nothing else than a direct communication channel between the airport and passengers out there, right? Next thing that they're bringing in is a social media presence. They're on Facebook, they're on Twitter, they're on a bunch of other social media networks. Again, direct communication channel to travelers and other people that visit airports. Next thing could be an app. The next thing could be big digital screens that you see in airports. So you have all those increased communication facilities that all of a sudden lead to the fact that you have direct interaction with people. Now, at the moment, it's not necessarily at every airport, and also not at Brisbane, not necessarily coordinated and consolidated. If you look at, for instance, airlines, you have a frequent flyer number, you check in with your card, your mobile phone vibrates, gives you confirmation of checking in. This is integrated technology around the passenger. In airports, we don't have that. Again, keep in mind the history, primarily B2B businesses, and now the big elephant in the room, focus more on people, focus around you when you're traveling, or focus on the people that pick you up. So what airports are going to, and what we're pushing and what we're working together with Brisbane Airport Corporation from a QT perspective, is for Brisbane Airport to build up an integrated digital platform. Now, what's an integrated digital platform? It's effectively a collection of digital assets that make sense for you as travelers, or for you as people that pick other people up or drop other people off. We cannot do anything against, say, the delays that you experience when you're flying into Brisbane at this point in time, but we can manage the follow-on effects for people who are waiting for you in meetings, or for your wives or husbands who are going to pick you up in front of the airport. We can also not do anything against the fact that you're waiting sometimes in order to go somewhere else because your flight is delayed, but we can make that experience through digital technology more pleasant. We can also not do anything against the safety and security measures that the federal government puts in place, or against immigration procedures. But through technology, we can decrease the levels of stress and anxiety, and I think this is where the innovation potential is through digital and through mobile. Is we can make those solutions work for passengers, for travelers, and for other people who visit the airport in order to increase the overall experience, improve operational processes, and thus make the lives of everyone involved easier.
Thank you. Thanks for that. And probably the most natural way to keep going from airport, and I'd like just to also then invite Ben James who is the airline development manager at Brisbane Airport Corporation. He's actually been with BAC since 2005. He's just came back from a 2 years exchange working at the Amsterdam airport, Schiphol, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of people here would have seen the app. It's pretty cool. So one of the things I'd like to say is welcome, and he probably has done a lot of traveling around 47 countries. And I'd like to begin by saying we're very privileged to have him here. And so Ben, please.
Thank you very much. Look, I'm going to confess, I'm a technologist only in the end user sense. My background, however, is in tourism and travel here in Australia, a little bit in the States and in Europe. And I spend a lot of time up in that blue sky. In tourism and travel, we're acutely aware that technology is the great enabler of the industry. From wind to winds, it's been the advances in hard and soft technology that's made travel and tourism change both in size and in scope. What hasn't changed, by contrast, are the fundamental stages of travel and tourism of a journey. Now, whether you go back to the very first organised travellers who would have been religious pilgrims off to Santiago in Spain, or Mecca, or the Ganges, or whether you look at today's Gen X, Gen Y flash packers who are perpetually online, connected right to their hip pocket. Stages of a journey: to anticipate, to go, to experience, to return, and to remember. That's still what travel and tourism is built on, no matter how much the details within those stages are completely unrecognisable from even a few years ago. The other crucial understanding of the travel industry is that it's a service industry. The products, so to say, of travel and tourism, which are transportation, accommodation, and hopefully some entertainment. These aren't things that leave you with anything much in your hand, unless of course you do exit through the gift shop or pick up some duty free. And it's this aspect that makes today's technology perfectly suited to this service role, because it creates two very important pieces of value. It creates simplification and reach. And we can all think of the examples and the stories of being able to, in a couple of clicks of a mouse or flicks of your iPhone, find a hotel on the far side of the planet and book it, and then get on a wide-body aircraft which probably only takes one stop to get you there. And that's a big change from the turn up and hope approach and the change planes 10 times milk runs that used to take us around the planet. Now look, the man who once said to the American Patent Office, look, everything that needs to be invented is currently in existence in the world, that man is now a joke at forums like this. But when we look around, it seems that the traveller has an almost infinite array of apps and help from technology that give them greater choice, greater ease, greater functionality. And the challenge that I was asked to lay out tonight is perhaps there's another part of the tourism and travel equation which will be the next fertile ground for technological aid. And that's the small business. It's repeated over and over again that tourism has one of the highest participation rates of small and medium enterprises, small businesses of any industry around. And what I'm talking about here are the mum and dad operations, the sole operators. Now these are people who are time poor, probably skill poor, definitely capital poor, and they're often, while we're talking about connected cities, they often are outside the larger cities where things are just a little bit harder. And it's on this part of the industry, on the supply side, which is ripe, absolutely ripe for the sort of technological help to improve processes and improve product, so that those sort of owner-operators can spend less time doing what we call back of house and more time out the front of the house actually delivering that tourism experience. It's going to be through technology that makes tasks simpler, communications easier for the small business, that we can really lift that part of the industry, and that's a big part of the industry, from being talented amateurs to delivering world-class services and really driving the reputation of our destinations.
Thank you very much. Then I'd like to begin by saying once we have the airport, then we should go to the airline, actually. We're privileged here tonight. We have Nandor Loka, who is the manager of e-commerce at Virgin Australia. In his role as the manager of e-commerce, I mean, he's won several awards in terms of the development of the services and as well as the front end part as well. And I'd like to begin by saying, as a user, I think we all very much, relying on these mobile apps nowadays. So, and also what happens in the background is very much important. So tonight we're very privileged, and once again, I'd like to welcome Nando.
Thank you very much. So actually, great segues to my part from the airport side of things. Picking up the theme, airports are a B2B business, we're very much a B2C business, first and foremost. And what mobile technologies offer us is a fantastic new revolutionised way of really engaging with our customers. It's really going to revolutionise travel, and I think that's no secret. And what it allows us to do is to take a completely customer-centric view, because the mobile phone, there's no better thing to have on any of our customers in their pocket at any time. Mobile and travel are really a match made in heaven. Again, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure that out. And what comes in addition to that, as you know, airlines are pretty big on loyalty programs, and the loyalty to airlines is a big topic for us. With mobile technology emerging, I think we're redefining loyalty, customer loyalty, in a very dynamic and competitive environment. It's very hard to create that loyalty. We are very much in a service industry, you're right. And what other elements have airlines to play with other than the price point? What makes that last decision? And I think having applications that facilitate the entire journey from the booking process to the day of travel to the feedback at the end, mobile is a fantastic platform for that. We have got lots of visions, and this is really I could keep probably going way past the 5 minutes in my presentation. But our vision is really to create an environment where the mobile phone becomes a combination of a personal assistant, of a travel agent and a tour operator at the same time. So it is an intelligent device that can provide the right information at the right time, in the right location, and surface that automatically. It's going a step further than just that. It's actually about anticipating and the next needs of the traveller, understanding what the intent of the traveller is at the very given time where they are at, and really replace any other device or any other item they've got in their pocket, be that their travel documents, be that their identification, be it their wallet. We really can continue thinking of the endless opportunities this offers in the travel environment. And again, other than the airports, airlines have the opportunity to continue the customer along the entire customer journey. So there's so many touch points along the customer journey, from the very beginning of creating inspiration for travel, shopping, research, purchasing, day of operation where you arrive at the airport, you check in, you find your lounge, you find your gate, your flight is delayed, you are disrupted, you're on board the aircraft. At the end of the journey, providing feedback and sharing experiences. You can really take the entire travel journey, and each touch point has a fantastic opportunity for us to leverage this technology. So that is a very exciting place for airlines to be, and there's a lot of good examples around the world already, but I think none of the airlines really around the world have fully cracked this opportunity yet, and I think we see a lot already, but there's much more to come in that space. Obviously, what happens as well with mobile is we create a new channel of engagement. So in the context of multi-channel interaction with an organisation where consumer interact through websites, call centres, agents and others, mobile is creating new data that organisations can work with, and in the context of big data, it's another big opportunity. So again, if I go into a visionary state, I would love to see we have a flight state engine which tells us where each aircraft is at every given time. I'd like to see a passenger state engine that tells us every single passenger at every given time where they are and what to do. We understand what their needs are, what their preferences are, and we can serve the right service and the right content at that given time. So that vision of a passenger state engine is a great idea that we'd like to pursue. And obviously based on that information we collect, the business intelligence that we can put on top of that, so again in the context of big data, that's a great opportunity. I have a minute left, I need to wrap up. I want to touch at the end of it, I've been talking about B2C, but I need to mention B2E, so applications for our employees, as another great opportunity to really enable our workforce, be it frontline staff, to enable them to understand, to serve them with customer information. So imagine in-flight cabin crew having tablets available to them and completely understanding you as a customer, your preferences, your profile, your purchase behaviour, you had complaints before, and being able to give you the best possible service, options for service recovery if something goes wrong. So there's a lot happening in that space as well. So I think I probably need to wrap up here. Thank you for that.
Thank you. It is really pleasing actually to hear a lot of focus on the customer. And when we go and book our holiday, we go to the airline first, right? I mean, we usually go through the airline, and then we arrive in the airport. Guess what? The next step is obviously going to the public transport and the main road and make sure that we can arrive on time in our place. So I'd like to continue on then to Daniel Sutter. And I apologize if I should have checked your last name, how to pronounce it properly.
Sutter, but you close enough.
Thank you, Daniel Sutter. He's the Road Operations Coordinator of Department of Transport and Main Road. He's got a 10 years experience in traffic engineer, both in government and private sectors, and he's worked in a lot of aspects of traffic signals, done a lot of signal modeling, and I'd like to say that he's got something here which resonates with the theme for tonight. The Gold Coast, as a Gold Coast local, he's looking forward to play a part in preparing the city for the Commonwealth Games in 2018. So that was very cool because I think with that I'd like to welcome Daniel. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm not quite up in the air, I'm a little bit more on the bitumen myself. My job revolves around traffic operations and anything and everything to do with how you get to work in the morning, how you get home, how you go to the shops and stuff like that. Everything that you do when you go out in your car or on the bus and to some point the train, you go through traffic signals. They govern how the network goes a lot of the time. So my blue sky it's about choice. We know when we look out this window, there's probably still people sitting in a queue there right now. When we go home, hopefully it won't be a queue there, but we've all sat in the back of those queues just outside here. So it's about choice. The motorists, why do we choose to go at this time of day, every day, to sit in that queue? What I'd love to see in my vision is we have more choice about what's going on. We understand what the network's doing, how it's reacting. Is it a good day? Is it a bad day for the traffic? Is it the first day of term and everyone's driving their kids off to school? So what I want is a network to talk to each other and to talk to us. So the cars give us information, the traffic signals, we've got all this detector information out there. Currently, we've got a lot of instrumentation out there. It's already there, let's use it. We've got coloured roads on one of the screens over there, you can see at the end. But that's just the starting point. Your NatSav in your car, we want that to be talking to you to tell you which is the quickest route, which is the way to go, and beyond what we've got already. My vision to link in with the airport is you get off the plane, you walk down the stairs at Brisbane, and there's a big monitor there, and it's got these coloured roads up there that tells you, wow, that road's operating as per normal today, and the travel time to get to the CBD, to Chermside, to Indooroopilly, to the Gold Coast is X number of minutes. So you can make an informed choice. Do I go have a coffee, because I know it gets better in a bit, or do I go now? Do I catch the train? Do I catch a cab? Do I take the bus because of the busways? It's all about choice. I still want to choose to sit in that queue, but I want people to know they've made that choice because they've got the bus information, they've got the ferry timetable, all there in one, most likely, mobile device. The other part is, and this is on our side, the technology side, is USB. They used to call it Rosetta Stone. The analogy I'm trying to draw here, universal serial bus. You get whatever toy you want now and you can plug it into your computer, it works. What we have to do on our side of the fence is to make sure all these different systems collecting all this awesome information actually talks to each other. Once again, it comes back to choice. When I get a brand new phone, I customize it how I want. I get my desktop the way I want on my computer. I pick the color of my car. If I only have one type of information out there that's coming from one source and it's not going to work with anything else, that's not really going to work. So we've got to have the integration there of all these different information sources, pulling into one common area and then let people write the apps for it. But we've got to have that universal language, that USB for this technology and all this data that's coming in. I need to know the airline's coming in late. So that information has to get to me somehow. I need to know the bus is running early. Whoops, I better get going. All that information has to come down to choice, right onto, taking your word, the personal assistant in your hand. You better leave now for your appointment because traffic's bad. Or you got time for that coffee. So I want to choose. It all comes down to choice. So my vision going forward is about that. Because at the end of the day, we don't have a lot of money. We're not going to be building many more roads. Congestion is a part of life. When I look around the world and I see all the world cities and you say, you know, public transport use in England, in New York and places like that is really, really high, that's probably because the traffic's really, really bad. There's actually a measured point about 45 minutes is the average time people will spend in the car for their journey. After that, they look for different things. They leave earlier, they pick a different mode, whatever, they telecommute and all those awesome things, but we're still going to get in the car, we're still going to go where we want. We've got to give the users the choice to know when they're going and how they're going to get there. Thank you.
Thank you. I definitely like that point of we get to choose as the customers. Very nice. So last but not least speaker for tonight is Professor Simon Washington, who is TMR chair at QUT. He actually is endowed Transport and Main Road chair at QUT and recognized internationally for his contributions in the field of behavioral econometrics applied in the area of transport and urban planning. There's a lot of papers, and in particular, he's actually led 26 million externally supported research. So I think with that, I would like to welcome Simon for his presentation.
Thank you very much, Dion. What most of you don't know, that Dion asked all the speakers to sort of course, limit our time to 5 minutes, but said a couple things. He said, I want you to be provocative about what you say, and talking about opportunities, where things that we think, crystal ball sorts of things. And so I thought about how do I sort of answer that question, what are opportunities? And the way I'm going about this, I'm going to share with you a few things. And the first thing I did is went down and developed a list. I'm going to read some of this list to you. Identify things that we know we've learned over the last couple of decades, and then trends that we're seeing in mobile space, in media, online media and other things that are occupying my mind at the moment and making me think about the opportunities. Then I'll turn to where I think the opportunities exist. So the intent of this is to make you think and give you some thought, and then I'll tie these back together when I talk about opportunities. Individual travelers make individual optimum decisions, not system optimum decisions. So when we choose to travel, we aren't choosing to travel to save the system emissions or congestion or anything else. We do it for our own optimization. This has tremendous opportunity later because we think about the market opportunities are around system management. And think about that just as planting a seed in the mobile app space. Travel time is king, right? So the thing people are after most is to save travel time. That's first in the list. That's what we know about travel. Second is cost. Third is convenience. Okay? A 2010 study of Queensland drivers, 77% of drivers reported using their mobile phone while driving. 40% report daily use while driving. Okay? 27% reading a text message while driving, and 18% sending a text while driving. Okay? Inattention contributes to 33% of fatal crashes. Sensors are becoming ubiquitous and less costly. So we have sensors, motion sensors, fatigue sensors, eye trackers, proximity sensors, and mood sensors. You've all seen the application here that's looking at mood and detecting mood from facial recognition. All of these sensors will be available in mobile phones over the next couple of years. We are expecting a wave of transport innovation. We've seen about 6 waves of transport innovation throughout history: steam engines, railroads, electrification, the automobile, and in information and communication technologies. We are now at a trough and looking for the next major wave of transport innovation. All right, social media. What trends I'm paying attention to in the social media. Australians spend more than any other country on social media, 7 hours per month on social media, 16 hours per week online, and 3.7 on mobile phones on average. 58% of Australians own 3G handsets. 70% of our smartphone users have downloaded at least one app in the last month. By 2016, 70 million families will keep tabs on each other through GPS tracking. Smartphones are the fastest growing or penetrating technologies in households of all time. So smartphones have penetrated 50% of households in 7 years. Second place is radios. Third, VCRs. Fourth, internet. Fifth, color TV. So faster than anything. 96% of smartphone users research a product or service from their phones before they buy it. Internet cloud sourcing allows decoupling of software from hardware, so we can now compute in the cloud. Okay? The last trend I'm paying attention to is gamification. Gamification, or gameful design, which I know there's a lot of people here involved with that, turns an activity into a game using game mechanics and rules. A serious game is a game designed to achieve business outcomes. Australian households with game devices rose from 78 to 92%, and the average the age of the gamers rose from 24 to 32 years of age. Females now make 47% of gamers in a household. Gamification will be a $2.8 billion business in 2016. And 70% of global 2,000 businesses using at least will use one serious game. Okay? So those are the trends that I'm paying attention to as I look for opportunities in the mobility space. So, where do I think those opportunities exist? The opportunity really is about mobility and not travel. Travel was the 1990s and the early 2000s. We're talking about mobility, and I think all the discussions up here have been around mobility. How do I manage travel from the start of a journey, whether it be an airline travel journey or a road trip? And admission choice is part of that trip. It's all about mobility and mobility choices. Smartphones will be the preferred device in the short to medium term. I don't believe they will be the long-term choice. But I think in the medium term, we can count on them being the choice. And any in-vehicle devices will be replaced by mobile phones. Travel intent is the golden opportunity. So travel intent is about using technology to figure out what people intend to do without asking them what they intend to do. Can we look at a signature of someone's travel and determine what they plan to do or where they're going to plan to be near? For example, are they going to be near a Kohl's restaurant tomorrow, or a Kohl's supermarket, or some other kind of coffee shop, where I can reach out to that customer and know they're going to be there without asking them to tell me where they're going to be. So everyone's talking in the travel space about intent. How can I understand intent of where someone will be? Voluntary crowdsourcing is a key ingredient, and I say voluntary. That is, if we look at the Facebook model, people are voluntarily giving their information. People do not want to be tracked in their travel, but can we entice them to voluntarily give us that information? What incentives can we provide to get people to give us that information? There's tremendous value embedded in when, where, and why people travel. So business is looking at opportunity in the mobility space. And you can be thinking about, if we know the intent of someone's travel, if we know where they are, what kind of time constraints they have, we can then offer them products and services at that moment in time. That is the most valuable piece of information to any end client or consumer. And if we can couple the mobility space and mobile apps with the end consumer and the client, that's where the opportunities exist. How do we build in gamification? That's a big question. And what will driverless vehicles offer? If we have driverless vehicles, how will that change the landscape in transport? If you can get in your car and push a button about a destination and get at least some portion of your driving done by the vehicle, how will that change the landscape? It'll change the value of time in the vehicle and change all kinds of it. It's a game changing kind of thing. So those are, I think, broadly speaking, where the opportunities exist in the next 5 to 10 years.
Thank you very much.
So we started with talking about cities and why they're so large in size, and Europe being cities being so much smaller and so much more people living there and taking footpaths and stuff like that, which obviously has a bit of different transportation needs. Then we went into, after we were briefed what we're actually supposed to do, we started talking about this topic. The first item that we have here is connectedness. So we talked about the actual travel experience, say in air travel, is one thing, but if you're delayed, I mean, you're sitting for half an hour longer on the plane, which is not really an issue for yourself if you're sitting there. The problem is really the follow-on effects. It's the people in meetings or the people that try to pick you up at an airport that are going to be suffering as a result. So, what are potential solutions for that? We talked about Wi-Fi on aircrafts, as it is usual in the US or elsewhere, but not yet in Australia. We were wondering why and have no answer to that. That connectedness would help, because if the pilot makes an announcement, they could actually, people could inform others. Other solutions obviously would be managed solutions from airlines or airports that would push out information to the ones waiting for us. In the same way, we talked about transparency. So Genevieve here from RSEQ brought up the fact that she just left last week and checked information on the arrival of a certain aircraft to pick someone up, and there was absolutely no indication that this aircraft's going to be delayed, and then as soon as she got to the airport, she was told that it's going to be an hour delayed, so she had to wait for an hour. So transparency and accurate information seems to have been a problem. Well, then came the shocker in the discussion. So we talked a little bit about the sustainability issue here and the fact that Brisbane, the air quality is so polluted. And again, Genevieve, manager sustainable transportation at RSEQ, and myself being a bit of a protagonist, having built solutions in that space before. When the 18 to 25-year-olds on the table, like Ewan and Naomi, informed us about the fact that sustainability is no longer a concern of the 18-plus generation and 18 to 25-year-olds. So I was arguing I'm going to be dead much earlier than them, so I should be caring less about the future of the planet than they do. To which they informed us that that's not the way it works anymore. It's about social norms. So someone has to spread the word on Facebook that something is unacceptable for them to realize. Note to self, every lecture from now on, there's 5 minutes on sustainability. And I'm trying to get the big units from now on, not the small units. Luckily, my boss is no longer around.
We can say whatever now, right?
So, and that was probably, the rest of the discussion was really along those lines.
Thank you.
All right, we just wrote down a lot of different discussions. A couple of things was one, language. Let's stop using words, let's start using pictures, because we're meant to have lots of international business, especially Gold Coast 2018. Talked about an app for where to go, so connecting all those different data sources, so we have one app to go from my home to America, LA. Something that tells me all the journey, how is it going all the way. Really connected, being connected. Incentivizing for good choice, so that's about the sustainability. We're going to work out a way to get people who want to do these things, incentivize good choice, so being sustainable and things like that. Gamification, we saw that is huge development there, gamification of everything we do, get people wanting to do it. Threw out the word vehicle size, so does the car have to be the size it is? Can it be smaller? Are we driving around with 3 empty seats and a boot from empty space every day to work and back? Intent, we looked at the world of intent, so maybe the information in the networks and stuff like that, transport systems, should be smarter and predict what's going to happen on the network in the next half hour, in the next hour, to give you a bit more of a journey time. We've predicted an early peak, so if you leave now, it's probably going to be bad. So a bit more information out there. Also on the personal side of intent, in terms of what you're doing out there, where you're about to head to, do we have something that can help predict where we're about to go to help do marketing and things like that. A lot of information about trust and reliability, getting information out there that we trust and that's reliable. So this sharing out all this information is great, but it's got to be trusted and reliable. And one comment was made about, a very good comment, we've got so much power in all these devices that sits there idle. There's some massive world problems out there that could be solved with computer powering. Is there a way to tap into all these devices with so much power and use the brains and smarts in each one of these devices to help achieve those outcomes? I think searching for extraterrestrials was one of the ones that SETI program back in the 80s and 90s was big. I think it was around there, maybe 2000s. Using your PC in the downtime to help go through data. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Fantastic. We've invented a new moment on the flight. I'll start at the end of where we ended up. We invented a new moment on the flight. So after you've taken off and you've had the safety briefing and everything, there's now going to be a moment where you're all asked to lean into the middle, say cheese. The host is going to take a photo, and as you land, that photo will be emailed or SMS'd straight to you to bring you into part of that moment of being to get together and connected on the airline, on the flight. So you get your own little souvenir of being on flight VA123 from Sydney. How did we get to that? Okay. So we started out talking about the ability of technology to overcome what I call the asymmetry of information when you're traveling. You know about where you are, where your home is, but then you've got to go somewhere else. And we all spend a lot of time in that researching and preparing period for a journey, trying to figure out, well, once I get there, what happens next? And there are, in fact, some products coming out around the world to deal with that. And you know, beyond the good old Lonely Planet, which being a book was infallible technology, we're now moving into spaces where Dublin Airport has a product called Airport Genie. And that discussion moved into, but how much information do I want to give away? To whom do I want to give it away? I'm glad you mentioned the word trust, because trust took up a lot of what we were talking about. With technology, and it loops back to what we were talking about before, how much should be pushed? How much should be opt-in? How do we opt-in? For how long? Would the opt-in rates become higher if technology had a shelf life? I'm in Brisbane for a certain amount of time. I'm only going to get sent pushed emails for 30 days. Then we came through to transparency and personal choice and informed choice. How we got to the please say cheese moment down the aisle of your Virgin flight was about downtime in airports. Once I've had my this and had my that and got through to that final moment, the last 20 minutes when I'm sitting in the lounge, how do I connect with the community of people around me? Do I want to connect with them? Do I want to know them? Or should we be actually now lifting our heads back off the mobile devices and getting back to some form of acknowledging that shared moment of being together on a journey?
That is fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, we chose a topic around disruptions and sort of the end-to-end journey. So obviously, with my Virgin hat on, I sort of drove the discussion a bit. For us, disruption is a big topic, and if our executives could have one pick in how to use mobile, is to solve the problem of the challenge of disruptions, and I think that would be applicable to pretty much any transportation company, because that's where the biggest dissatisfaction occurs. So, but we want to go beyond the airline journey and just look at the end-to-end journey, the traveller from door to door. So we looked at that cross-product approach. So that includes your ground transportation, that includes again the flight itself, the airport experience, and others. We talked a lot about the need of sharing and integrating data across different platforms, different product categories. So How do the taxi organisations, the car companies talk to the airlines, to the accommodation providers, and so on and so forth, and realise quite quickly that, no rocket science here, that there's a need for standards and for a governing body that really ties this together. Airlines within themselves have got that body, it's called IATA, and it sort of governs how we talk to each other. That's why you can do different flights and different airlines on one ticket, but you can't do the same thing with other product categories, and that would be again great to have that sort of standard across different categories, which could be applied and used in case of disruptions. So again, your flight got delayed or cancelled, you're stranded in a connecting port. The airlines has the ability to offer you options of accommodation. Booking can happen straight away. It's part of your ticket. The call centre knows about it when you call them about it, and so on and so forth. So when we look at disruptions, we sort of categorised in two key steps. One is about providing information and notification at the right time. So nothing gets people more upset if they don't know what's happening. So that's remedy number one, and that's challenging in its own right to get the right information there at every stage. And the second one is about providing customised and personalised solutions for each of those. Again, in form of a recommendation, by understanding your intent, by understanding the customer's preference. How good would it be that, having crew walks up and you fly and say, your connecting flight has actually been cancelled, but we've already thought about it, that we know you need to go to Cairns. We've got a hotel booked for you, and you connect to it tomorrow, and here's a $50 voucher for your breakfast or whatever it is. So again, having personalised solutions which are going to make a real difference and can really add customer value. We talked about in-flight connectivity, so there's a real untapped opportunity. It's certainly not the airlines that don't offer it. It's certainly not that the technology wouldn't be available. There's a series of issues. And again, why is it possible in the States and then in Australia? It actually comes down to the coverage of the ground antenna network. So in the States, aircraft communicate with the ground antenna telecommunication provider. Ask Telstra to have a couple of pitches to the government to do the same here, but it hasn't got through yet. So the only way of doing that is through satellite communication, where you've just got to do a thin pipe at this stage. And again, the last one, actually I mentioned that, is around cross-product. So how can we bring different travel products under one hat? Because I think we will see that more strategic mergers of different product categories will start forming alliances and offer end-to-end solutions.
Excellent. Thank you. I don't have my sheet in front of me, but I think I can remember all of it. It's all right. No, I think we're good. So the discussion started with the question about when you book on an airline flight, that you can book a seat and you're guaranteed that seat, and you can pick the seat. And the question came up, well, why can't we do that on a bus or a train? And of course, in some trains in Europe you can't do that, but we certainly can't do it here in Australia and Brisbane. So that launched into a question about, well, how would we pull that off, and how could we do that, and what's the real problem that we're trying to solve there? And it came down that this is a level of service problem, that we're trying to guarantee a level of service for a user of the public transport system. And so how could we do that through a mobile application? So we then had a discussion about designing an app that would allow you to give your intent to travel on a certain train or bus, and that you would then get some information about how crowded that train or bus might be, because you really want a seat. It's not about a particular seat, but just making sure you have a seat. And that if it is going to be full, that you get the information about it being full, and that you might get incentives to take some other mode or some other train that's 2 minutes later or something else. So really thinking about how to design such a product that would guarantee a level of service on public transport. And then we launched again into the airline, which the question was, well, how can we make the airline travel experience much better, much less onerous? And for some reason, our groups focused on our baggage, which was fun. It was we just ran out of time, I think, but we started with the idea is, well, one of the limitations, especially people with handicap or any kind of limitations in mobility, can't lug bags around very easily, and you have to call a cab, throw them back, and all those things. So the question was, well, why don't we have a service where the airline picks up your bag at your destination and it's waiting for you at your origin, and vice versa on your trip home? Then that launched us into a discussion about sustainability. And we started questioning, well, how much of an impact would that kind of customer service require to deliver that level of service, which is a relevant question, because you've now created an additional trip of picking up your baggage. And that launched into, again, a discussion, well, if the trip that was foregone by the traveler now went on to public transport, for example, they can take public transport because they're not having baggage, then maybe that's a more benign mode, so there might be an offset. And that's really where the discussion ended, was really on where's this balance between sustainability and customer service, and how do we draw those distinctions, and of course, at the end of the day, there has to be a business model that's workable for any of these solutions. So that doesn't always take care of the environmental issues, but it certainly takes care of the business model side of it. So I think that covers most of what we've discussed.
Can we all thank all the panels